Hey, bom dia. Welcome back. Hey friends, I just had a really cool experience for the very first time as a YouTuber. I was walking down here along the waterfront in my neighborhood, and one of my viewers, one of my subscribers to this channel recognized me. I was just walking down the street and he calls out my name. A very nice guy from New York City, where I'm originally from. It was really nice to chat with him. Hope I run into him again sometime. He says he loves it here in Salvador, and that he comes, I think he said frequently. So that was a first. And it was very nice. Thank you. You know who you are. I was just thinking I want to give a little follow-up to my last episode where I talked about, is it possible to live on $1,000 US a month here or anywhere? And I just want to say, you know, I realize that I've made two YouTube videos before. One was about a year ago, one was about 2.5 years ago, about how much I lived on. I think in the first one, I mean, it was 2.5 or 3 years ago now, I said I lived on something like $650 a month. And then a year ago, when I was living here in Salvador, I think it went up to like $850 a month. And I wasn't exaggerating or lying. It was true at that time. That was my monthly. Those were my monthly living expenses. The first one, I was living out in a small city about 4 hours from here, and so of course costs were much lower out there. And then the one I made a year ago was about 800 and something a month. I was living in a fully furnished apartment. And so I didn't have any of the expenses of like having to buy furniture or appliances or anything like that. And then of course you add just inflation, the inflation that the whole world has been dealing with. My costs are higher now, mainly because of all the things I had to buy to start in a new apartment that I moved into here in August, when I moved back here to the city of Salvador from a small city about 4 hours away from here. I had absolutely nothing, not even a bed to sleep in, not a refrigerator, I didn't have a stove, nothing. And so that is why in my last video I've talked about how it is hard to live on $1,000 a month right now. But I anticipate that around February, about 3 or 4 months from now, financially things are going to get a lot easier because I will have paid all this stuff that I had to buy off. So I just wanted to say that, to put it in perspective, and in case anybody was scratching their head and wondering, well, how was I able to live on much less in 2 previous episodes about that subject. And this is the reason why. So I will be getting down probably to about $1,000 or close to $1,000 a month in a few months from now. Just going through tight times, a little more expensive now because of credit card purchases. Going back to that guy that I just met, who recognized me from YouTube, it was interesting. He was an interesting guy. I could see the sparkle in his eye and the enthusiasm in his voice, and I recognized myself. It's that same love and enthusiasm that I have, that he also has for Salvador. It's contagious. And I knew exactly where he was coming from. And he says he comes here frequently. And I went through that phase many years where I came here every year. And I stayed, and I said before, I stayed the maximum that I was allowed to, 6 months out of the year. And then finally, 4 years ago, I took the plunge and became a legal permanent resident. And early next year, I'll qualify to apply for citizenship. So that's been my trajectory. And I think that there are I know that there are other foreigners here on the same path that I am. Not just here, but all around the world, of course. You know, my last video, my last episode where I was talking about finances and how much one needs to live here in Salvador, and how recently I haven't been doing a very good job of sticking to a budget because of all of my moving costs. But it also triggered memories of my early years in Salvador and all of the mistakes and follies that I committed in those early years. In those early years, well, I could think of a couple of factors that contributed to my not failure. I certainly do not consider those early years a failure. They were amongst the happiest years of my life. But mistakes, I guess, that I made. Beginner's mistakes. I had already been traveling the world for decades at that point. But, you know, as Tom Jobim, the famous Brazilian composer, once said, Brazil is not for beginners. One mistake I made was, and related to my poor money management skills, or lack of money management skills, I should say, was when my mother passed away in New York City. She left me some money. You know, that happens to many people at a certain stage of life, usually middle age. And I, having never had any money in my life, just was the person who lived paycheck to paycheck, suddenly felt flush. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to invest it. I didn't know how to plan for the future. At the very least, I should have bought an apartment here in Salvador. At least I would have that. I did buy a little house in that small city I was living in, Santo Antonio, but I have zero interest in living in that little house. I gave it to my brother-in-law. So, in effect, I didn't really buy myself anything. I just spent a lot of money. Spent and spent and spent until I spent it all. Yep, I did. And I don't regret it. I had a lot of fun, a lot of interesting experiences. I'm still here. Going broke didn't drive me away. I live modestly now on a monthly Social Security payment, but I have a lot of experience and history under my belt that I think makes it easier now for me to live in Salvador, because I've been around the block many times and I know what the pitfalls are here and I know what to avoid. And so I'm just able to experience the best of Salvador Bahia now. What's a major mistake I made back in those early years? Well, one was drinking too much. I don't know if I ever reached the level of becoming an alcoholic. I don't like the taste of alcohol. You know, I would turn my nose up if someone offered me a straight whiskey or a gin and tonic or any kind of alcoholic beverage that tasted like alcohol. But I do have a fondness for sweet drinks. I'm talking about like a screwdriver, vodka and orange juice, a cranberry and orange juice, a rum and coke. And when I came here to Brazil, I discovered what is called the national drink, the caipirinha. And boy, did I love my caipirinhas. They're very sweet. They're just cachaça, which is undistilled sugarcane rum, I guess you could call it. It's a strong liquor. I would never drink it straight. But caipirinha is made of cachaça with lots of sugar and fruit. Generally, limes are the most popular. Limão, but also any kind of fruit, generally tropical fruits. And I acquired a taste for my caipirinhas, and I would sit on the beach and drink 5 or 6 caipirinhas over the course of a long day, and then at the end of the day, go to the neighborhood bar and drink another 2 more caipirinhas. So that's a lot of caipirinhas every day, virtually. And you know, I don't think I became an alcoholic because when I did finally decide not to touch alcohol anymore, that's when I had a stroke. I think it's been about seven and a half years ago. I made the decision to never touch alcohol again. Now, you have seen me sip a caipirinha in my videos, I would say 3 or 4 times a year on a special occasion like a birthday or Christmas or another kind of special occasion when somebody comes into town from far away. I will have a caipirinha. So we're talking maybe 4 caipirinhas a year. But other than that, I made the decision to not drink alcohol anymore. And it wasn't a problem, is what I want to say. I didn't get the shakes. I didn't see pink elephants floating above my head. I didn't have any relapses. It was very, very easy to go cold turkey. So that's why I suspect I never reached the level of alcoholic. But I do think that it damaged my health. Acquiring that excessive taste for caipirinhas. I think it may have caused or greatly contributed to me getting diabetes type 2 late in life, and it may have contributed to my stroke. I have no idea, but I know it didn't help. So my advice, stay off the booze. And my second rookie mistake here was to get involved with some people that I shouldn't have. Not intrinsically bad or evil people, but people who were on the wrong path in their life. And you know, I wasn't doing anything bad or naughty, but they weren't a good influence. Now, they did help me to radically improve my street Portuguese. That was a big benefit. But I think, you know, my excessive drinking of caipirinhas and other bad experiences or habits developed during that period. And I'm much, much, much more selective now about who I allow into my life. I have a much smaller circle of friends and family around me here, and that has made things radically different in a better way. One of the things that had my early years, boy, it seems like every month somebody was dying around me. I know that sounds very grim, and but you know, a victim of crime, a stabbing, natural causes, murder. It just seemed to be epidemic. And there is a saying, life is cheap here. I don't believe life is cheap anywhere. But it sure seemed that way those early years. But this time around, I haven't experienced anything like that. But that was the reality of my early years here. An example was right here in my own family, the family that I married into. One of my brother-in-laws was stabbed in the heart by his own brother, his half-brother. Was stabbed in the heart. They got into a kind of a very mild argument, as brothers do. He was in his very early 20s. Brothers was in his late teens. And you know, one day I get a call that he was dead. That was a kind of like shock. One of the shocks that I had in those early years. Yeah, that person was Macias, Eliamar's half-brother. Yep. He even came out to live with us for 1 year when I was living out in the small city of Santo Antonio. Lived in my house while he was going to high school. So I knew him well. Look at that in front of us is a Mirage jet of the Brazilian Air Force. Sits here permanently now. But I realize one creates their own reality, and I've created quite a different reality this time round. Much calmer, much more tranquil. As I said, a smaller circle of people in my life. I don't invite that kind of drama into my life anymore, wittingly or unwittingly. So, where am I? What am I doing? Well, I just left the house without any direction or plan. Actually, second time I left the house. I left the house early this morning for my early 5:30 a.m. walk along the beachfront road, and now I'm out a second time. I just started walking in a direction, and I'm finding myself walking towards the Rio Vermelho neighborhood, again along the waterfront. So that's where I'm heading, Rio Vermelho. Why am I walking to Rio Vermelho? Well, I think it's because my neighborhood, Barra, kind of sits at the bottom of a bowl at sea level, surrounded by steep hills. Like maybe I just subconsciously didn't want to climb any of those steep hills to get up and out of the neighborhood. So I chose the route along the seafront that doesn't require climbing any hills. It's going to be a long walk. It's 1 hour from my apartment to Rio Vermelho and 1 hour back, and then I'll, go to a cafe or something, or a bookstore or something in Rio Vermelho. So it'll be a total of 3 hour walk, which is a good walk, but it doesn't, except for one short hill, it's mostly flat. I was also this morning asking myself, why do I like so much living outside the United States? And I think it's because, especially in my childhood and adolescence, I did not feel comfortable. I didn't feel like an American, a U.S. citizen. I didn't feel like I fit in or belonged. I remember going back to my early childhood. I'm from New York City. I'm from Manhattan. That automatically makes you kind of an alien, just being from New York City. It's not a normal American childhood. And, my parents, my biological parents, were not normal, if I may use that word. My father, I call him what do I call him? I call him a malignant narcissist. Enough said. And my mother was, in La La Land. She was an actress. And so we were kind of left, my brother and I were left to our own devices, which is kind of nice. I loved it. I called those first 5 or 6 years in Manhattan kind of the golden years. But everything changed when I was early 5, or we were early 5, my fraternal twin brother and I. One day my mom said, a man's going to come and visit us this afternoon. He's bringing his 2 young sons. They're about your age. I remember being mildly curious. And that afternoon they showed up, and we spent the afternoon playing. And then I remember they left. And I remember going back into our bedroom, which was a very nice kind of bedroom set up like a 1950s nursery. I remember it had Mother Goose figures on the linoleum floor, and we had lots and lots of toys, lots of stuffed animals, lots of building blocks. And I remember we had a teepee, a child-sized teepee, but you could get into it, and it was plenty of room for 2 or 3 or 4 children, and we had a lot of stuffed animals in there. Anyway, it was idyllic. But I remember when I went back in my room at the end of the day, there was our teepee on the floor, completely destroyed. All of the wiring inside of it bent. It was totally misshapen, destroyed. Never to be used again, to be thrown away. And the rest of the room was a total wreck. Everything was strewn around. And that was my first experience with kind of what would be considered normal American childhood in the late 1950s. And it was completely alien to me. I might as well have been from Mars. These two kids became, within less than a year, my new stepbrothers. And you know, they were all about football and baseball and tennis and playing bottle cap wars and roughhousing. And that was completely alien to me. And I didn't fit in. And I think that's where I got my first clue that I didn't fit into American culture. And look where I am now. Here's an example of how my childhood was not normal. You know how you get a Social Security statement? You can look at it, you either get it in the mail or you can look at it online. It shows all the years that you worked and what you made every year. Well, when I look at my Social Security statement, it shows that I have earnings for years 1957, 1958, 1959. In those years I was 3, 4, 5 years old. And that's because my brother and I did television commercials. My mother was a television actress and my father was a television producer and director. So they put us to work in the business. And I remember doing, that we were the Beech Nut Baby Twins, that's right. I remember doing Arm & Hammer baking soda commercial. I remember doing Pepsi commercial. I wonder where those earnings are. I surely never saw them. I sure could use them now. Oh well. That was my early childhood in Manhattan. And now I'm spending my golden years here in Salvador Bahia, Brazil. Poor but happy. Anyway, I'm going to end this episode here now. Trying to keep my episodes at around 12 minutes. I never know until I actually upload them until how long they're really going to be. But I'm going to end this, and I want to thank you as always for joining me today. Beijo, ciao.